I've had some more conversations unfolding in sessions that are continuing to address a lot of the content that I shared in that last video about the foundation of all relationships, your connection to yourself, including themes of codependency, karmic cycles, etc. And I heard this phrase or saying: universe, God, your spirit team, higher self, whatever you want to call that, your divine guidance will never lead you to losing yourself in effort to save someone else. That is out of alignment if you're finding yourself in a situation like that. And if you do notice that you've experienced situations like that or are feeling lost now inside of some of your relationships, there's nothing wrong with you. This is not about beating yourself up or finding deficits. Let's be honest, if you've lost yourself inside of a relationship to save someone else, you probably experienced enough diminishing, and you don't need to continue to pile on top of that, right? So this is really what I call trauma reenactments. And that's more of like the psychology term around it. Spiritually, you can say karmic cycles. And I'm sure there's a host of other ways to explain that or to label that. What's important is not the label. What is important is the information that can lead to the epiphanies, the realizations, the growth and evolution, the healing work. You can't really heal until you're intimately aware of where you're wounded, right? And this is what those relationships in our lives are doing for us, is mirroring back, patterning. What is it that seems to be magnetized in my direction? And this isn't always, oh, I'm terribly unlucky, I'm attracting awful people, right? It's these traits, these qualities, this sensation, dynamic, feeling has been similar in these last 2 relationships or these last 3 relationships or whatever it is. And there's something about it that even though I know I'm not feeling satisfied or fulfilled or safe, or I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought because I'm thinking I'm speaking with my hands and I've got this ridiculous crayon Band-Aid on my finger as I got a little paper cut when I was putting a file away earlier. So I just completely lost my train of thought about that. Apologies for this silly kid's Band-Aid. It's what I had in my purse from my kids. Oh, my Lanta. Okay, so what I was saying is when you take a noticing of that, and I think what I'm saying there is when you realize that there's some patterning there and you notice, it feels difficult for me to break away from those type of relationships. Like that kind of relationship where that thing is coming up doesn't feel easy to walk away from. And why is that? Because it doesn't feel good, right? There's things I know are unhealthy there, and yet I feel like it's a challenge to honor myself or do something differently there, or to just say no to it. That feels very similar to an addiction, really. Like there's an addictive patterning there. And as with any type of addiction, whether that is, shopping or gambling or drugs and alcohol, right? I think most of us, when we think of addictions in that way, of the more commonly referred to types of addictions, there's an understanding of most people who experience that have some trauma wounds that are unhealed, and the disease of addiction, kicks in really as maladaptive coping, really, avoidance, escaping, really difficult, painful kind of things, trying to find some relief for something that feels intolerable sometimes. And it's, I think you can draw similar threads to that in terms of a relationship that feels addicting, that feels difficult to leave. What is the thing that feels intolerable to you that's being triggered really by that dynamic? And what I'm most of the time able to do in sessions is pull out those things and help the people I work with to get underneath it and to see in what ways we have inner child healing to do and how that's being mirrored back to us in those relationships so that we can get that healing that we deserve. And once you heal that wound, the trauma reenactment and or karmic cycle will fall out of your life, right? When you're no longer needing that to be reflected back to you because it is healed. And those inner child wounds is oftentimes, I tend to seek out, I'm noticing this pattern, not I seek out, because that feels a little bit too like, no one's seeking that out, right? No one's seeking out, like wanting intentionally, consciously to have these trauma reenactments or these repeated, difficult things that they're experiencing where they're continuing to feel like betrayed or neglected, or that somebody is dismissive, emotionally unavailable, that somebody's sense of worthiness is completely being like put onto your shoulders, and now I'm pouring myself into you and I have nothing left of myself, right? So just coming back around to reinforce, if you're feeling any sensation of needing to pour yourself into or lose yourself into and give up all these little pieces of yourself, right? Until eventually you're a little unrecognizable and depleted in effort to save a relationship or lift up another person. And I air quote that because that's not healthy for the person on the receiving end either. That individual on the receiving end is also experiencing this similar reenactment of or mirroring of what needs to be addressed, healed, what we need to ascend from. And we don't want to enable that by continuing to look outside of ourselves and hyperfixate on the external dynamics and trying to problem solve that.